operate. That included the Chief Justice and his staff, the Defender General, state's attorneys and sheriffs, local officials, law enforcement, and human service providers. Because we all had a role to play, an important role at that, and I knew we needed to work together to have any chance of success. It also meant appointing a special prosecutor, Zach Waite, who's here with us today, as well as having a dedicated judge for this very specific and focused initiative. I want to thank Zach and retired Judge Maley for stepping up and taking this on. The idea behind the Accountability Court was to surge resources for a 4-month period to address the court backlog of individuals with 5 or more pending cases and hold offenders accountable, while also connecting them to the services they may need to improve public safety and restore public trust. Had we not put this accountability court in place, many of these offenders would have been stuck in the persistent court backlog, where hearings might not have been scheduled for weeks and months. By moving cases quicker, we were able to create stability and consistency and have all the key players at the table in order to address the root causes, while also holding individuals accountable for their poor choices. With a bit of creativity and common sense, we utilize many of the tools of the justice system to move repeat offenders into a situation where they receive the right type of care in the right place in a timely manner. This meant some moved directly into services in a community setting, while others entered our correctional facilities, where drug treatment, recovery, and services were provided. In Burlington, we've shown what's possible when we keep an open mind, put aside our egos, and dedicate a prosecutor, judge, and resources to a community every day for a short period of time, and focus on the repeat offenders and resolve their cases so accountability can happen sooner. We've heard from others across the state interested in bringing this model to their counties, and we included funds in the budget adjustment to expand the model and services so what was provided to Burlington is available to them. And after hearing from business owners and community members in Rutland, we hope to bring this now proven pilot program to Rutland County first. I'm prepared to provide the resources needed to be successful from the executive branch, but we can't do it alone. So I'm hopeful we can find a way to give Rutland the same focus and time Burlington received, so we improve their quality of life, reduce crimes, and make their downtowns safer. So with that, I'll turn it over to Special Prosecutor Zach Waite.
Thank you. Thank you, Governor. And I want to say thank you to the Governor for giving me this opportunity to serve as Special Prosecutor, and to State's Attorney Michelle Donnelly for allowing me to pursue this as well. I believe 3 key aspects allowed us to be successful in the Chittenden County Accountability Court. Number 1 is that we had an abundance of court time. We had 5 days a week, a dedicated judge, Judge Maley, that was available, as was myself, 5 days a week to deal with these defendants and these cases, and to really dig down into the issues that were underpinning the behavior that was engaged in. The second key aspect was we had the resources in the AHS, in DOC, and local providers such as Howard Center and Pathways that came to the table, were in the courtroom, willing to talk with not just the attorneys, but meet with the defendants to engage with them, clinically assess them in some cases, and get them immediately engaged with services and support right then and there, either before, during, or even after the court hearing. And the third was collaboration. Collaboration and communication between all the partners, from the Department of Public Safety and VSP to the Department of Corrections to AHS, the Defense Bar, with me and the Governor's Office, all being able to talk about the issues openly and honestly, about the needs that we were facing, and what the response should be. I think those were the 3 key aspects that allowed us to be successful, and I hope those are available in Rutland, because I know they'll be successful as well. So I'll turn it over to State's Attorney Sarah George, who I worked collaboratively with, and I couldn't have done it without her.
Since 2020, the court backlog statewide has made it incredibly difficult to prioritize and resolve nonviolent offenses, leading to an understandable frustration in our community that people were not being held accountable. Many of you are aware that I secured a grant in collaboration with a local nonprofit in Burlington to develop a specialized diversion program that we could connect people directly with services in hopes of tackling some of this issue. And through that program, we cleared approximately 300 cases, with new folks entering that program as they become eligible. But that was done outside of the courthouse and for a very specific type of individual. For the folks whose cases had to stay within the courthouse walls, there simply was not enough court time. There were not enough prosecutors, not enough judges to address those people and those cases. When Governor Scott asked to assist, I came to Montpelier, I met with him and the Judiciary, DOC, the Defender General's Office, and it was very clear that without those additional resources, this problem would persist. I am grateful that Governor Scott, in collaboration with my office, the Judiciary, and the Executive Director's Office, provided those resources that were desperately needed to dig us out of the backlog. By prioritizing these folks' cases and these needs, providing court dates close in time, and connecting folks directly with services. Through the program that I developed and this specialized docket, we have cleared over 1,000 cases that would not have otherwise been prioritized by the court. I want to especially highlight the work of our admins and victim advocates in our office who adjusted fast and furiously to a rapid and significant change in their workload. With very little notice, they jumped in to process, file, and close hundreds of cases and connect with hundreds of victims to ensure that they were heard in this process. I also want to highlight how grateful I am for the close collaboration with DSA Waite, who was a seamless and welcome addition to our team, and how grateful I am for the sacrifice of State's Attorney Donnelly, who really graciously lent Zach to us, likely at some, hopefully short-term cost to her own office, understanding that we all are in this together. This sacrifice gave our office the relief that we needed to focus on violent crimes, including homicide-related offenses, to which we have resolved a significant number through trials and plea negotiations. This has put us in a better position moving forward to address all criminal behavior in our community in a timely manner, hold folks accountable, connect them to services, and address the needs of the victims. This includes a new sort of specially tailored version of the governor's docket within our own docket with our own resources. And our first day was this past Friday, and we had a very successful start. We would not have been able to do that prior to this docket happening. Finally, I want to be really clear as this conversation goes statewide that every community is going to be different with very different needs and different barriers. But I cannot stress enough that most counties in our state will not be able to dig themselves out of our statewide backlog without everyone's help, and very creative solutions and close collaboration between all invested agencies to get it done. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over now to Executive Director Tim Lueders-Dumont.
Thank you, Sarah. Tim Lueders-Dumont, Executive Director of the Department of State's Attorneys and Sheriffs. Get the bag clean up, so it's everything's really been said. I wanted to call out a couple important pieces, and mostly the collaboration that was shown here across. And I'm going to give the legislative branch their due course because we're in this people's house. We've been having this conversation for years, and with the governor's incredibly helpful push to get people at the table, we're able to fundamentally shift how we do court operations. This is how court should operate. It should be every docket is an accountability docket. And you can't do it 1 day a week or 2 days a week. People in our community expect accountability to be a 7-day effort. Our department is on call 365, 24/7 with law enforcement because that's what hits our courts on Monday through Friday. So we are hopeful that this does not become siloed or become a fossil of the past, that we talk about that pilot in Chittenden. We hope that this is a path forward. And I want to call out the incredible team And when we say AHS, we mean a whole bunch of folks, but Department of Mental Health, Department of Corrections, the Howard Center, that works seamlessly with our court system in Chittenden. If we can take some of that, some of the special sauce from Chittenden, and put it around the state and surge resources when needed instead of building silos, I think that's the way of the future for our state. And all of this is driven by not just the community's need, the well-being of employees. When you're a state's attorney and you're dealing with 500 cases, that's not healthy. It's not good for victims who have to work with our offices. It's not good for law enforcement who want more time with their cases. So I think what we're calling for here, beyond the collaborative approach going forward, is a new way of thinking about court. When someone comes in, fourth case, fifth case, we need to shift. Those folks need to jump forward. Right now, the real competition is violent crime and nonviolent crime. And understandably, with the way that Vermont has also shifted in an increase in violent crime over the last 10 years, this is something that has been building for some time. And if we can figure out a way to always prioritize nonviolent, community-related offenses, retail thefts, unlawful mischief, the types of things that impact our commerce, we can still focus on violent crime, but they should not be at the cost of the other. So I want to extend an incredible thanks to the governor and to our team, Sarah George's team, the administrative and victim advocate staff, Deputy State's Attorney Waite, who did seamlessly fit into that office, and State's Attorney Michelle Donnelly, who lent us out an incredibly helpful employee. And now I look to State's Attorney Sullivan and what we can do to support a community in Rutland that has been dealing with repeat offense and high volume defendants for a great number of years. So I just want to thank the governor and our whole team here. As we move forward, we know that flexible court time and human services are the most important aspects to deter repeat offenses and recidivism in the future.
Thank you, Tim. And we'll open up to questions on topic first, please.
Governor, as it's been mentioned, I mean, this has been really effective in knocking down the court backlog, but I'm thinking from a recidivism perspective. How have we measured the success of this so far in getting the people the help that they need and also sort of improving conditions on the street, still given also that it's February, it's cold out, we haven't seen high activity in the streets this time of the year.
I might ask Zach to comment on some of this because there was different pathways during this court procedure. It wasn't all about sending people to a correctional facility, but it was getting them the help they needed to get back on course. So Judge Maley talked with us a great deal about this, and it was just very impressive to hear that people were, because of the situation, because they were there every day and they could come back, and if they were repeat offenders, even while they offended in for that, they were brought back into court immediately so that we could get them back on the right track. So Zach, I don't know if you want to expand upon that a bit because you and Judge Maley work closely together on this, and just maybe describe some of those situations.
Sure. Yeah. Well, what we do in criminal court and in the justice system is really all about people. And so the definition of success is actually multifaceted. It's not just about someone is convicted after they commit a crime and then they're never back again. What we tried to focus on was, number one, can we identify the underlying issues that this person has presently that might be causing the criminal behavior, and working with not just the defense attorney, but also with Judge Maley and his experience from the bench with the human services component, we were able to identify those needs, put really a treatment plan together around them that incorporated DOC supervision in a lot of the respects. Some of the people ended up at the facility for a short term to a long term, depending on the convictions and the sentences. Some all stayed in the community, and it was about those people who were unfortunately struggling with housing instability. How can we best surge resources for them in their personal lives and connect them to services? And so I think over the long run, I think any prosecutor would tell you that at a sentencing hearing, we hope we don't see this person again. We hope we're fixing all the ills in this person's life. I don't think that's necessarily a reasonable perspective. But what we've been able to do with the Chittenden County Accountability Court is everyone who came before Judge Maley and was involved in this, we really took an across-the-board approach, a holistic approach of looking at them as an individual, looking at the needs that they had, and seeing if we could put a plan together that could sustain them for the next few years. But it's ultimately up to them to really do the hard work and to continue to engage.
Might ask Jenny, is there anything else you want to add to this, or any members of your team that might want to weigh in?
So I think what worked really well here is that collaboration and that connection with the court. We were able to bring resources to the table, and that accountability was an important component of this. That collaboration allowed the individuals to come in to the courts repeatedly because of the flexibility that was demonstrated and that was shown. And because of that collaboration, we all knew what the treatment plan was. We all could support the individual, and they didn't wait months for their next court date or even longer. They came in almost weekly for many of the cases. That level of accountability really made a difference, and that level of collaboration between the courts and the human services system was integral to the success of this program.
Governor, if this is going to be a model that we're going to adopt going forward or expanding, are you going to propose putting more money toward either mental health or our designated agencies, the Howard Center?
Well, again, we have money in the budget adjustment to move forward. I'm hopeful that we'll do it in the same manner as we did in Burlington because it was so successful. But as Zach had said, there are different needs in different counties. Sarah actually said that. There are different needs in different counties, and we have to be able to be nimble enough to react to that. And I believe we can be because we've shown that when we work together, for instance, Washington County, transport might be an issue more than in Rutland County. So we have to focus on that. We thought it was going to be a problem in Chittenden County, and we were all prepared for that, but it didn't turn out to be such a huge issue. So again, flexibility on our part, being able to be nimble enough to focus on those areas, I think is going to be key. And then we'll see what it brings at that point, what our needs are, and what we learn as we move forward. Because this is, one county, and all the counties, as I said before, are different. So we'll learn as we go, and then be able to backfill as needed.
Why did you decide Rutland County out of everywhere in the state?
Well, we saw the backlog. We know that Rutland County is in need. I might ask Ian to come up and talk about that a little bit. But we saw that they have a need, and as does Washington County. But we have to choose one place, and they were, I think, set up best, or they appear to be. But again, it all depends on how we do this, making sure that we give them the same thing that Burlington got.
How much money did you guys spend on the accountability court in Burlington?
I don't have, Sarah, maybe you can talk about that.
Hi, good afternoon. Sarah Clark, Secretary of Administration. So the the budget adjustment that just passed the Senate yesterday and we expect will be passed out of the House tomorrow contained about $350,000 for costs associated with the accountability court. That's across the judiciary, the state's attorneys and sheriffs, and the Department of Public Safety.
Ian.
Yeah, it'd be great to hear from you.
Yes.
Say a little bit about that.
Sure. So I think from my perspective, Rutland is well situated to take advantage of a surge in resources. In the last 38 months of judiciary data about clearing cases, in those 38 months, we've cleared more cases than we've filed in 28 of those months, more than any other county. So we are used to, we work hard at resolving cases in a way that's just and appropriate for the community, but there are also other community stakeholders that are ready to work with the judicial system to reach just and appropriate resolutions. From an infrastructure perspective, we also are situated just about a mile from the Marble Valley Correctional Facility, meaning that those defendants who are incarcerated pretrial are readily available to the court when a hearing is scheduled on short notice so that they can be transported. There's also a pilot effort from a sequential intercept model to address people's holistic needs who are coming before the court that's already up and running. And those are resources that, from my perspective, can be leveraged for as much time as we are given by the judiciary so that we are using every minute of court time as effectively as possible.
Could you give us more details about what the court might look like? Like, will there be an assigned judge and prosecutor, and will you have certain service providers in the courtroom?
Sure. So I can speak most clearly about my office's resources. I am assigning my most experienced Deputy State's Attorney to be wholly focused on this project. Peter Bevere has been a prosecutor in Chittenden County, Addison County, and Rutland County for over 2 decades, as well as being a prosecutor in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. He's deeply experienced and deeply connected to his communities, and he is well situated to take this by the reins. We are offloading many, if not all, of his cases to other prosecutors in the office so that he can give this his full attention and make the most of the time we've got.
Can you give us a sense of the scale? Like, how many individuals are we talking about, maybe compared to what we've seen in the Chittenden unit?
I'll talk about Rutland first, and I'll let other folks talk about Chittenden County. So we've looked at a list of defendants with 4 or more pending dockets in Rutland County. That's 55 people. Of those 55, 19 of them were incarcerated at the time the list was generated. They represent just shy of 370 open cases in Rutland County. So just 55 people representing just shy of 370 open cases in Rutland County. That's almost 40% of our open docket. So those 55 people do represent a significant impact on our court schedule. And if we are able to justly and appropriately resolve a significant number of those cases, it will make a meaningful impact on the overall operations of our court. But I'll let other folks talk about what Chittenden was like.
Sure. Or that, I mean, that's
sure.
Yeah. I guess
For the numbers for Chittenden County, we started with 103 identified defendants, of which about 28 were on warrant status, and that amounted to about 880 dockets. By February 6, we had resolved 72 defendants' matters, totaling 702 dockets. So we cleared about roughly 75–80% of the cases and defendants, and I think we left 19 on warrant status and 20 with pending dockets.
I guess, Governor, for the decision to do Rutland next, is the decision because the backlog is so bad there, or is it because the quality of life issues for people there are so bad that that's why we're doing it?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. There's a balance there, and there's a willingness on the part of the state's attorney who wants us to go there. And again, I'm not leaving Washington County out, nor Bennington or Wyndham, because I know that they would like us to come there as well. So I believe that Rutland would be a good next step for us if we can make this work. We've had conversations with the judiciary. I'm not fully on board with their plan, but that isn't cemented, and hopefully that we can have some conversations about what we should do.
And Governor, do you plan on coupling the pretrial supervision program through DOC with the court in Rutland the same way you did in Chittenden?
Yeah, the pretrial with this type of accountability court isn't as effective because we're putting them through quickly. So pretrial will work in other situations, but in this situation, I don't know as it would work out all that well. And again, I'll look at some of the prosecutors.
I agree.
Agree? You want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Charlotte, you and I have talked about this before. I think the pretrial supervision from DOC is a great tool that can be utilized by not just courts to keep people out of jail pretrial, but I think will ultimately, once it's up and running, will be used by defense attorneys as an ability to sell the court on keeping their clients out of jail, because these are typically people who have multiple dockets that are struggling to abide by already pretrial conditions of release and or failing to appear in court. And so this is a tool short of incarcerating people pretrial. When the governor said it wasn't really utilized, that was true. I think we had 6 people in Chittenden County Accountability Court that was referred, and one ultimately was supervised under the program because they were seeing the judge multiple times a week to every week. If the Accountability Court in Eanes County is launching, I think the pretrial supervision program would work great in something like Washington County or Bennington, where it's going to be 90 or 120 days between the court hearing, and there's a small population here that are picking up repeated charges, and that tool could be used as a supervision to not just make sure the community's safe, but that these individuals are abiding by conditions of release, and in a way effectively helps us resolve cases as well.
All right, we're going to switch over to the phones for some on-topic questions. Keith Whitcomb, Rutland Herald.
Hi, thank you. I was curious, what do you still need to make this go in Rutland? Who do you need it from? And I'm kind of curious if you have any idea when it might begin.
I think it could happen anytime at this point. We just want to make sure that the details are worked out. I'm, again, concerned. Initially, the judiciary had said that they wanted to do this over 12 days, once a week, over a 3-month period. And I don't think that's going to work. I think it's not going to be as effective as we saw in Burlington, and actually may fail under its own weight, because part of the secret to this success was having everyone in the room on a daily basis, seeing the same people over and over again. Judge Maley talked about this, and he would be better to talk to specifically, but he talked about this one case in particular. And it was a female offender. She was incarcerated, I believe, but she got some treatment, got cleaned up, got some sleep, had a place to stay, and kept coming back and over days. And he could see the improvement in like a week or 2 weeks in just her demeanor and her outlook, and they found a pathway for her to get back on track. So had that been over a 3-month period, one day a week, maybe every other week, I'm not sure that she would have fully recovered. But that's something Judge Maley might be able to talk about more.
Thank you. Are these supposed to sunset after a certain period, or are they ongoing? Like if you get a backlog again, like I don't know what caused the backlogs to begin with, but if things start to back up again, is it easy to fire these courts back up, or do you have to go through a whole procedure again, or what's the long-term view?
As far as the cause of the backlog, I think it's mostly pandemic related, and we never did catch up. So this helps in a lot of ways to catch back up. And then I'm hopeful, as we're finding in Chittenden, that we will continue to use the accountability court model, but be able to do this on maybe 1 or 2 days a week as we move forward, and be able to work the backlog if it starts to increase, be able to focus on those cases if they're causing it. So I think that this will be beneficial in the future, but having the surge first is going to be extremely helpful and effective. And I'm not sure that, again, doing this on a piecemeal basis over a few weeks in the beginning is going to work. That might work after the surge is taken care of.
Thank you.
All right, we'll turn it back to you.
Governor, I know we're talking about this in the context of this budget year, but do you see this becoming, part of the system statewide at some point?
I think it will take some time. These issues won't go away. There's going to be, not everyone is going to be healed in some respect. So we are going to see some repeat offenders back again through the system. So I think this could be effective in the long run as well, but we'll manage this and we'll learn from it. And if this becomes part of the system, I think all the better. Being more nimble, being reactive, I think is good for the system itself.
What about money for housing? I know VPR had some good reporting a few years ago about the backlog. There was somebody in Burlington that kept missing their court date because they were living in a tent on the waterfront. You mentioned the need for mental health and substance use treatment and that, but what about the housing?
Again, we were able to help in that regard, and I'm going to look for AHS help on this one as well. But we were able to help some of the offenders who were coming through the program find some emergency shelters so that they could get in and help in that regard as well. So again, when you don't see the person, if they're released on bail, so to speak, and their court date isn't for weeks or months ahead, then they don't get the help they need. This way, we get eyes on them. We have folks from AHS in the room, and we can get them the help they need at that very moment. And so that was part of the success as well.
So I think in this case, I do want to give a shout out to Pathways Vermont. The collaboration with the court and others allowed us to really look at what were the housing needs of the individuals. Oftentimes, individuals were cycling in and out of housing, and as we heard in the case the governor talked about, they were able to go to treatment and then come back to their community and then to go to housing. One of the things that I didn't mention before is for many of the people that we worked with, several of them came to us and said they've never felt like they were seen as much as they were in this model, where it felt like the court cared, felt like the agencies cared, and that they had wraparound services. So the value of this program is really to be able to plug individuals into our existing service systems that already are on the ground and are available. And again, shout out to Pathways. They really stepped up in this model, in this community, to help us work on housing-related issues for this group of people in this accountability court.
I just want to add on to that briefly, too, that although we certainly do not have enough housing options, the options that we have are complicated to get into. And for folks who are struggling with homelessness, mental health, and substance use issues, it's nearly impossible. So I would need to stress again, having somebody in the courtroom when those folks do show up, no matter when that is, which I think also goes to needing it to be 5 days a week in the beginning, anytime that they do ultimately, either on their own or through the sheriffs, but get brought to our courthouse, having somebody there that understands all of those barriers, understands all of the options and the criteria, and making those calls with them while they are in court is instrumental to getting them into those beds that are available. That is not how our system is currently designed. We tell somebody basically to get housing, and then we send them back to their tent in the woods to try to figure it out when they don't have phones. They're, again, struggling with really significant issues. So what I think was instrumental here, and we even saw it in our first day on this past Friday, is having somebody there that knows exactly what housing options they are eligible for, and making those calls with them was really key.
And just one more piece of that. As we've talked about many, many times over the last few years, unless we do something about regulatory reform, we're not going to have more housing, more permanent housing, which we desperately need. And we'll continue to invest in more emergency shelters so that they can provide the wraparound services that these folks need as well.
Have you seen the new polling from Let's Grow Homes, speaking of?
I have not. I've heard that they did do a poll and they are going to release that maybe today, but I did not see the results. I think they talked with some of our staff members, but maybe, I don't know, what did they find?
Overwhelmingly shows that housing is top of mind for Vermonters. I think they use the word crisis point or breaking point.
I've heard that term, yeah, crisis. I mean, many people have used that term over the last couple of years, and yet we don't treat it like the crisis it is. Otherwise, we'd be doing more regulatory reform.
Why regulatory reform? Why not Airbnbs, taxing second homes?
Just more money in the system isn't going to solve this problem. Most of the housing historically has been by the private sector. And if we don't provide a pathway for the private sector to develop, then we're not going to get it done. We put, over $500 million of ARPA money and so forth over the last number of years, and that has just made just a little bit of a dent. We need to make it easier, faster for people, developers to build housing that we desperately need right now.
Different topic, Governor, but
Can we just make sure there's no more on-topic questions first?
Maybe just one. This is kind of bouncing off something that Keith asked earlier. I know you said a lot of the backlog is pandemic related, but I'm wondering if there are any safeguards in place or guarantees that another backlog isn't built up.
Well, again, I believe that with the collaboration that we've had more understanding, willingness to work together, I think we can, if somebody sees a backlog coming, then we can address it as it comes and make sure that we don't get in the same position we're in today. But we have to be flexible, again, listen to one another, and do whatever we can to reduce that backlog.
So the backlog was made exponentially worse during COVID. There was an existing slowing of cases preceding the pandemic, and so COVID made that worse. One of the ways that we've thought about this is the balloon was about to pop in Chittenden County. The Defender General said he had never seen the surge of new filings just before we started the pilot. So we've made the balloon less able to pop in Chittenden, but it could always happen again. And so as we think about the state issues, the time, deploying the time is the most important aspect in the whole process here, the time to work through. Now that State's Attorney George is dealing with 20 defendants with 5 or more instead of 100, she's able to do that 1 day a week, but the initial surge deployable and time available is very important initially, not just in Rutland, but in other locations. And we hope that other judges, and we know there are other judges who are interested in this topic, are thinking about how they can think about court scheduling more forward thinking to prevent a future backlog, whether it's a pandemic, whether it's a resource issue, whether it's a housing crisis. All of those things compound the opportunity to be in court. So time was a major issue because we were dealing with violence, we were dealing with the inability to deter, and if you have a case pending for 300 days, you might commit another crime during that time period because there's no check-in with the judge. Just to say the pandemic made it exponentially worse, but there are other processes by which a backlog can develop again.
We also have 2 new Supreme Court justices that are going to be part of the court. They have a lot to say about the oversight of the judiciary in general, and they might have a fresh perspective coming in new, not being part of the system. They might have some ideas on how we work our way out of this situation. Ms. Keith.
Keith, did you have any other on-topic questions?
No, thank you.
Okay. This is where you might want to leave.
Yeah, no worries. Obviously, the president gave his State of the Union last night. Did you watch it? And if you did, what was your reaction?
I did watch it. Nothing was really surprising to me. So it was more of the same of what we've been hearing for quite some time.
What do you mean it wasn't surprising?
Well, I think we could all predict what he was going to talk about in terms of the economy and affordability and so forth, tariffs, all the above, the decision on that. So I think it was all predicted. And again, from my standpoint, I've been talking about the affordability crisis for a number of years. It's still here. When you talk about having, whether it's a 2% or 3% increase in costs over a year, that's with the inflation, that's compounded. It's compounded over multiple months and years. So it's extremely difficult, especially for the middle class at this point in time. So I'm hoping, again, that we can all take some measures and work together to try and provide more affordability for everyday average Vermonters and Americans.
Do you feel hopeful that the president is going to tackle the affordability challenges that you see in Vermont or in the rest of the country after hearing what he said last night?
I don't know as a result of what he said last night. I think those of us here in Vermont understand that we have an affordability crisis. We have a housing crisis, and healthcare is an issue as well. So it all adds to the cost of living. So I think we recognize that. It's just a question of how we attack it. And we've put some plans together, some ideas, and hopefully the legislature will follow through.
Governor, you said a little more than 1 year ago that we can't live in chaos the next 4 years. I'm wondering what you think of just the nature of State of the Union addresses nowadays, where it's become pretty normalized for folks to interrupt, shout in the middle of the chamber, things like that.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in respect and civility and decorum, and I think that what we're seeing is an example of what we shouldn't be doing. We should listen to one another and have our disagreements and work together to try and do what we can for our constituents. And I just see more polarization, more separation, fragmentation across the country, which is alarming. But going to the National Governors Association meeting last week, we had some really frank discussions with one another, both Democrats and Republicans, governors, talking about the issues that affect us. So I've got some hope that maybe we can make a difference as well.
And Governor, at that conference, can you give us like what kind of frank discussions were you having? Did you get the chance to talk to the president about some of your concerns about affordability, and what was the dinner at the White House like?
I didn't go to the dinner at the White House. I went to the business meeting on Friday, and that was after he came to the conclusion that everyone would be invited. So that happened the night before, so I wasn't really sure at that point whether I was going or not. It was all predicated on inviting two more people, which they were. There wasn't a lot of time for questions at the White House, although I did get to meet a couple of the cabinet members I hadn't met before, which was helpful, and at least put a name with a face, and we had some small talk, and hopefully we can work together in the future. So that was effective. But the president went on and kind of like a State of the Union address, addressed us, and then he got word about the tariffs, and everything came to an abrupt end, and he went to prepare for what he was going to say to the press.
In her response after the speech, your colleague in Virginia criticized how the president has been putting his name and banners with his face on buildings in D.C. What do you make of the fact that the president has been doing that, and would you condemn the fact that he's done that?
Yeah, I don't think, I personally don't think buildings should be named after anyone until they're gone. So, I mean, dead. So, I think, it's not unexpected. The president has a fairly big ego, and he likes to see his name on everything. But this is just a moment, snapshot in time. That can change. That can change back the other way. They can be renamed again in 2 or 3 years. And so those aren't the things that I'm worried about. I worry more about our relationship with other countries, specifically Canada. And so those are the things that worry me most. Ukraine worries me a lot. I think we need to work with them. It's like a David and Goliath, and they're David. And so we need to help in any way we can. I was supposed to speak at a civility index conference at the, I can't remember what the name of the building was, but anyhow, that was canceled. So I had the opportunity to do something different. So I went to the Holocaust Museum to reflect on, I've been there a couple of times, and every time I see something new, and it's very powerful. There were 5 World War II vets that just happened to be there when I got there. So I got to meet with them and to thank them for what they'd done. And but then again, going through the museum is just a reminder of how quickly we can sometimes forget. And I think that it's something that we should reflect on, and everyone should go and at least take a walk through to see just not that many years ago something violent and egregious happened that changed the world, and we seem to forget that.
What effect, just switching topics a little bit, what effect do you think Senator Baruth and his announcement to not seek re-election will have on the trajectory of education reform?
I don't think it will have an effect on that. In fact, it might be helpful in some ways. I know Senator Baruth is invested in education reform, and he's been working with us on that. And so I was surprised to hear that he wasn't running, but I think that I don't think he will waver. I think that he will continue to do whatever he can, because he knows it's not that we want to, it's that we have to.
I know you've probably got to see the House maps, the Senate maps, town meeting days next week, then we've got crossover. Just what is your feeling that you know, at this point, you know, you look at, it seems like people are still pretty far apart, especially on the issue of independent schools. What is your hope or feeling, or can they come to consensus? Can everybody, you included, come to consensus by the end of the year?
The bottom line is yes. I think that we can come to agreement. It sometimes takes a little time through this building. The timing has to be right. The stars all have to align, and we'll see what happens after town meeting and some of the votes, whether that sways anyone one way or the other. But I have a feeling that, you know, there's going to be an awakening in some respects after town meeting day. But again, we'll see who votes for what.
You can vote for the buy down. Why not do a buy down? Let voters see the increase.
Because that's just putting innocent people, the victims in some respect, punishing them, the taxpayers. And that's why I can't let this go. I know that's been suggested, that we have to make it worse before it gets better, but I'm not sure it can get any worse than it is today, even with the help that we're trying to provide for taxpayers, the relief we're trying to provide. I'm not sure that's enough. I mean, even then, there's going to be, in some cases, a significant increase in property taxes as a result. So I'm sure from their vantage point, it's not enough.
Just to get a little more specific here, I mean, we know that from the preliminary reporting that education spending is a little less than what was predicted in December, but we're still going to see an increase. How do you feel about this, and what boards have reported and more?
Well, again, when I first came into office, I thought 2 or 3% was a lot.
And, you know, because a potential buy down won't come until the end of the session, I mean, taxpayers just aren't going to be able to calculate the exact their property taxes, you know.
Well, I'm not sure about that. I mean, I have it right here. I received this from my school district in Washington County, and they have the estimates of what it would cost per 100,000 of property value. So I can figure out pretty quickly what impact it would have on me, and I think others can as well. So need to do their homework and figure out what that will mean to them.
Are you planning on voting for your school budget?
At this point, because of the whole county increase, my town, not so bad, but the other counties are significant. Some, you know, it's like $250 per 100,000 of increase based on their projections. So at this point, I will be voting no.
Would you encourage other voters around the state to vote no?
I'm encouraging other voters to do their homework and make that decision themselves.
And after the Supreme Court ruling last week on Trump's tariffs, what's been your reaction to that ruling, and do you think it's promising for Vermont's relationship with Canada?
Yeah, well, I've never been in favor of the tariffs. I've spoken about that a number of times in this room. So again, it wasn't a surprise to me that they ruled in the way they did. What happens now, I'm not sure, because it appears that he's found another way to increase tariffs. So again, that's not good for our relationship with Canada or any other countries for that matter.
Governor, just different topic here. Write-in candidate for Rutland City Mayor Tom Donahue says that you have endorsed his case.
I have.
Is this true? Can you tell us why?
I've known Tom for a couple of decades, worked with him on a number of different initiatives, both at his time with Brock, with his time with the Chamber, even before all of that. So I think he's the right person at the right time for this position. It's unfortunate that the current mayor has resigned, but it is what it is. And I think that Tom can step into this position. He's an alderman and certainly has worked with other mayors in the past, grew up in Rutland. I think he has all the attributes needed right now at this point in time.
And do you think he would be should he win, he would be a good partner in getting the accountability court in Rutland as well?
Well, I believe so. I think, again, we have a great relationship, and not to say that that will have any effect on what they do in Rutland, but it does help to have someone that you can relate to and pick up the phone and talk with.
I'm not sure if I see Secretary Flynn, but I know that Vermont provided a little bit of assistance to Massachusetts, Rhode Island. If we can know a little bit more details of that assistance.
I can give you the highlights, and then Joe can talk about it. But we did send down a number of trucks and loaders and pickups yesterday with plows to Mass, and today we sent down a few to Rhode Island to help them out. Joe?
Thank you, Governor. As the Governor said, yesterday morning we deployed 12 dump trucks, trailers, loaders, I think 7 or 8 support pickup trucks with plows, 2 mechanic vehicles, and 34 people to the Plymouth, Massachusetts area. The reports I received this morning was they had to plow snow just to park their vehicles. It is quite significant. This morning we deployed a team for Cranston, Rhode Island. It consisted of 5 heavy dump trucks, trailers, loaders, I believe 5 or 6 smaller 1-ton trucks with plows, 2 mechanics. In total, 34 people to Massachusetts and 12 people to Rhode Island. And we're prepared to, at this point, there's no specific end date.
Great, we have time for 1 or 2 more questions.
Governor, this is maybe a question for you, or maybe some of the folks who spoke earlier, but do you have any update on the implementation of the Overdose Prevention Center in Burlington for that project?
I don't have any new information on that. No, I'm not sure that we do. All right, thank you all very much. Appreciate it.